It has been 8 years since Jeanette Mccurdy last appeared on our screens as the bold, fearless, and comically troubled Sam Puckett. While we love the daring and outgoing character Jeanette gained fame for portraying, it is sad to learn that the time she spent playing Sam earned Jeanette a place on the list of child stars with tragic stories to tell about Hollywood. Despite her appearances in shows and interviews as the happy-go-lucky, privileged Nickelodeon kid, Jeanette was hiding secrets that were eating away at her. That's why it was quite a shock to many when, on the 9th of August 2022, Jeanette released her tell-all book with a title that had tongues wagging. The book is called I'm Glad My Mom Died, and it exposes many secrets about Jeanette's private life, from how she was treated at home to what it was like working for Nickelodeon. In today's video, we will be telling you all about the details of Jeanette's book and filling you in on the similarities and contrasts between Jeanette Mccurdy and the character that launched her into the spotlight, Sam Puckett. Jeanette Mccurdy was born on the 26th of June, 1992 in Long Beach, California, to Mormon parents, Deborah and Mark Mccurdy. She was the last of 4 children and the only female child of the couple. Jeanette was raised in Garden Grove, California, alongside her 3 elder brothers, Marcus, Scott, and Dustin. Mccurdy's childhood was not very ordinary. Her mother overcame cancer when Jeanette was only 2 years old. Also, she was raised Mormon for a small part of her childhood before her family later quit the religion. Jeanette's father, Mark, worked 2 jobs, and her mother homeschooled her and her 3 brothers. Despite her father's 2 jobs, the family of 6 was far from comfortable. In an interview on The View, Jeanette affirmed that her mother was a hoarder and that she and her brothers usually slept on thin mats in their living room. In another interview with ABC, Jeanette revealed a shocking truth. She told the host that acting and fame was not a life that she dreamt for herself. Instead, it was a life her mother wanted for her. And as you will soon learn, Deborah Mccurdy was in the habit of living vicariously through her daughter. Jeanette attended her first audition when she was only 6 years old and landed her first role at 8. For a family of reasonable size with a financial shortage, Jeanette's rising acting career was a ray of hope. Soon, the responsibility of earning money to pay the bills lay on her tiny shoulders. Fortunately, Jeanette did not disappoint in securing role after role. She repeatedly appeared on TV shows from the year 2000 through to 2005. In the year 2003, when Jeanette turned 11 years old, the pressure at home got worse. Jeanette's mother, Deborah, began portioning her food. This was because Deborah wanted to keep Jeanette looking young so she could still get movie roles that were meant for children. At the time, Jeanette believed her mother's actions were in her best interest. Now, the recovering actress has opened up about how her early introduction to dieting led to many years of struggling with an eating disorder and her body image. By the time Jeanette scored the role of Sam Puckett in Nickelodeon's TV show iCarly at the age of 15, she had already developed an eating disorder. In the Nickelodeon hit show, Sam Puckett is a delinquent girl with a big appetite. This did not help Jeanette's relationship with food. One of the major distinctions Sam Puckett had on the show was her love for fried chicken. This meant that despite her own struggle with her appetite, Jeanette had to consume large amounts of food on screen. As you can imagine, this only worsened her mental state, and she began to see food as a duty or a chore that needed to be performed. Unfortunately, Sam's struggle with an eating disorder is just one of many things the actress suffered while shooting with Nickelodeon. It's no secret that the character Sam Puckett had an unstable family life. She often mentioned questionable things about her mother, and half of her family members were either in jail or on parole. Sam also had an absentee father. These family issues of Sam were usually mentioned in the show as comical situations. Sadly, some of these issues were things Jeanette could relate to. Her family life was unstable. In her book, Jeanette recalls that the atmosphere in her home usually felt like bated breath. Her mother was prone to outbursts, and Jeanette recalls that she and her siblings often walked about on tiptoes, making sure to do anything they could to please their mom, who had very intense mood swings. According to the former child star, these mood swings made her and her brothers live in fear of becoming her next victim. Another unstable situation Jeanette recalls about life with her family was once watching her mother chase her father around the house with a knife. At the time, Jeanette placed her mother on such a pedestal that she remembers cheering her on while she chased her father with the knife. Not only was her mom unstable, but Jeanette would go on to find out that, like Sam Puckett, she also had an absentee father. Mark McCurdy, the man whom she had known as father her entire life, was not her biological father. Unfortunately, this was something she learned after her mother passed away. While Sam Puckett's life was comically tragic, Jeanette's was not funny at all. Apart from feeling the pressure of paying the bills at home, Jeanette began to struggle with the pressure of being a role model for kids. Her life working at Nickelodeon was far from fantastic. She often worked long and tiring hours and even suffered several inappropriate encounters with one of Nickelodeon's top producers, Dan Schneider. At home, Jeanette's eating disorder took a turn for the worse. The actress soon got used to starving herself for days on end. When her body could no longer function without food, she would then binge eat until she felt full and guilty. The guilt made her hate the feeling of being full, and so she would often force herself to vomit. The only way she could enjoy high-calorie food was to force it out later. While on screen, she was fearless and bold, but in reality, Jeanette struggled with insecurities about her body image. She grew very thin, and each time she got complimented for her figure, she often felt the pressure to eat less. To add to that, Jeanette's mother, Deborah, was diagnosed with cancer again. Though her mother was a controlling narcissist, it still wasn't good news to hear about her diagnosis. Especially because at this point, Jeanette still believed her mother's actions were in her best interest and could not see that she was being mistreated. Jeanette continued to act for Nickelodeon while dealing with her mother's diagnosis. On top of that, she began to resent the character of Sam Puckett, which she played. Still, under the pressure of being a role model to kids, Jeanette felt like the personality Sam Puckett portrayed was not something to be emulated by kids. From her perspective, Sam Puckett was usually rude, physically abusive, and often indulged in illegal activities. This made Jeanette worry about the legacy she was leaving behind. In 2013, Deborah McCurdy passed away from breast cancer. Jeanette had just signed a new contract with Nickelodeon to reprise her role as Sam in an iCarly and Victoria spinoff, Sam and Cat. While dealing with the grief of her mother's passing, Jeanette also struggled with longing to have the life that her new co-star lived. Ariana Grande, who played the role of Cat Valentine, seemed to have enjoyed a stable upbringing. At work with Nickelodeon, Ariana also enjoyed a more flexible schedule than Jeanette. To top it off, she had a rising music career at the time. In her book, Jeanette recalls feeling extremely envious of Ariana Grande for all these things. And in an almost comedic turn of events, one of the major things that made Jeanette envious was finding out that Ariana Grande had once played charades with Tom Hanks. Above all, Jeanette was still finding it hard to cope with her mother's exit from her life. Seeing how Deborah had more or less been calling the shots in her daughter's life, it is easy to see why Jeanette began to feel disorganized and out of control after she passed. This feeling of being lost led Jeanette herself to realize that she was too used to having her mother at the center of her life that she didn't know how to make decisions without her. This problem was especially prominent in her diet, as she was used to eating portions her mother gave to her. Subsequently, Jeanette's relationship with food got worse and worse until she lost a tooth when she passed out on a friend's bathroom floor from dehydration. At this point, it became clear to all that the Nickelodeon star was in desperate need of help, so her sister-in-law advised her to see a therapist, which she did. While speaking to her therapist, Jeanette was first confronted with the idea that she had been abused and used by her own mother. The idea was so uncomfortable for her that she soon quit therapy. However, when she began to fall back into her destructive cycle, Jeanette made a decision to go to therapy, even if it meant confronting and dismantling everything she had believed about her mother's intentions and actions. Therapy soon shed light on the many ways in which her mother had abused her over the years. In her book, Jeanette shares several things her mother did that have now become clear to her as abuse. One of the disturbing ones was making Jeanette, who was 11 at the time, take a bath with her 17-year-old brother. She also spoke of having her mother bathe and intensively wash her private parts up until she was 17 years old. Her portion diet at 11, which Jeanette thought was her mother's way of looking out for her appearance in relation to her career, now also told stories of abuse. Finally, at Jada Pinkett Smith's Red Table Talk, Jeanette read aloud a verbally abusive email she had received from her mother. In the email, her mother expresses her disappointment at Jeanette no longer being her perfect little angel. She goes on to label her as a slut and a floozy that is all used up. She also calls her a conniving evil and a liar, and says that she is getting pudgier because she is clearly eating her guilt. The email then ends with her demanding money for a new refrigerator. Needless to say, the audience was stunned by the small insight into the abuse that Jeanette had suffered for years at the hands of her mother. Fortunately, through therapy, the former actress is now thriving in all areas of her life, including her relationship with food. Jeanette says that she was once heartbroken over her mother's death, but now she's more than fine. Speaking to The Guardian, the former Nickelodeon star turned author said, "It took a long time for me to realize I was glad my mom died." And to wrap things up on a somewhat pleasant note, in her interview with ABC News, Jeanette confirms that at the age of 30, she has, with the help of therapy, developed a healthy relationship with food, and that it no longer seems to her like a hovering chore that she can't overcome.